right, I'll go get cards. Go ahead, Sean.
All right, so thank you for coming. We packed the house. I mean, it must mean we're pretty popular. So today we're going to be talking to you guys about just kind of give you some base knowledge of how your building works and how it's designed to protect you in a fire. We're going to talk about what your role is, should there be a fire or an alarm sounding, and we're going to talk about shelter in place. And then most importantly, we're going to talk about prevention, because we don't have to worry about those first two if we just don't have fires in the first place. So we're going to talk about all three of those. And again, save questions to the end. If I'm not speaking loud enough, just put 2 fingers in the air and that'll remind me. My name is Shawnari Guzman, and I'm a fire and life safety educator with South County Fire. So my job is to go out in the community and prevent any kind of tragedy, from fire to people being injured in car crashes, to fall prevention, anything that might drive you to call 911 or need our emergency services. As much as we love going out and helping the community, we would rather have a very safe community and decrease those calls, because we just have people that are safe and healthy, and that's really the ultimate goal. So I'm the fire and life safety educator, and I brought somebody in a uniform because they're cooler than I am.
I'm Carl. I am your fire marshal for the city of Mountlake Terrace. I'm actually an assistant fire marshal, and I have 2 deputies that work underneath of me, and we cover Mountlake Terrace, Edmonds, Briar, and now Linwood. So
you got a little traveling time there, don't you?
I get around.
We actually have 14 stations in our service area and about 250 residents that we serve. So it's quite a big service area that we cover. And about 80% of our calls are medical. So those are slips, trips, falls. Those are people that are sick or heart attacks. So we go on very few fire-related calls. And that's because we just have better systems in place to prevent fires, but also to alert us if there's a fire, like our smoke alarms. So Carl's going to talk a little bit about how your building is set up, and I'll give it to you.
Sure. So you live in an extremely safe building. I think you probably already know that. There's sprinklers on all the floors. It has a fire alarm in there, which you guys got to experience just a couple of weeks ago. And so some of the systems that are in here is, a few of you may have gone to the elevator. Once the alarm goes off, that elevator is going to recall to the first floor. That's what it's designed to do, because it doesn't want somebody trapped in that elevator. It doesn't want that elevator opening on a floor that has fire on it. So it automatically goes down. Our guys will reset it and use it and that sort of thing. So you're stuck with the stairs. And you've got 3 stairways in this building in order to get out. It's very safe, but if you don't feel safe on the stairs and that sort of thing, then sheltering in place is not. Your building and hallways and your apartments and stuff are sprinklered, and so it's a pretty safe building. If you're going to shelter in place, then what we'd like to know is who's sheltering in place, who isn't, who doesn't feel as safe going down those stairs and that sort of thing. And so that is an option for you. To do that, so that you're not traveling down 3 flights of stairs or 5 flights of stairs, or that type of deal to get out. You guys did a great job. I talked with the guys that came. They were very impressed with how many people didn't just say, "Oh, it's another one of those false alarms," and stay and that sort of thing. The majority of you did were out and that sort of thing, and that's phenomenal. And you know what? That's what we'd like to see. But we also don't want any injuries either. So you got to just kind of weigh out whether safety factor is whether I should stay or I should go. But we need accountability, and so consequently, either we need people on the floors that kind of look out for each other, or we need staff that knows who's going to stay, who's going to go, and even kind of when people are gone. Maybe you leave for a couple of weeks to go south or this or that or anything like that. Those are handy things for people to know in order to make sure that you're not in your apartment when the guys do come to try to empty the floor and that sort of thing. Sprinklers are designed, they're not designed to put the fire out, they're designed to provide safety for you guys to get out. That being said, in my career and in this Northwest, we have never had a fire that the sprinkler didn't put out. But they're actually designed, so a sprinkler system in here, if one goes off, they all don't go off. It's not like John Wayne days where the whole building, erupts into water. They're actually only designed for a maximum of about 5 to 8 heads to go off before it depletes the pressure in the system and it starts to dribble a little bit. We have a connection outside, we roll our truck up, and this is in the event if it was a larger fire. We would roll up and connect to that, and now we throw 200 pounds pressure to it, and we can activate the entire building if we needed to in order to put that fire out. So they're designed to get you out, and then they're designed for us to increase the pressure and actually put the fire out safely.
So, do you know what the code is for our entry doors? I know that there is a period of time that you can have a fire in front of your door before it jeopardizes your door.
You mean like a time?
Oh,
Yeah.
how you mean how?
How long is your door safe?
The doors are designed as 60-minute doors, and that would be impinging flame at that door itself. So in the apartment complexes and that sort of, they're called a 60-minute door. In most of the houses and that sort of thing you see out here, they're 30-minute doors. So they're higher grade in here than they are out there. So, and we have some of them that even have automatic closers on them. That's probably one of the...
All of our doors do.
You do, okay. And that's probably one of the problems we run into is people that prop doors open and that sort of thing. Well, that's just an invitation for fire to travel from one room to another and that sort of thing. So, especially doors to stairways, that type of deal never should be propped open because that's just an invitation for that fire that's on a lower floor to advance up that stairway into another floor. So we discourage that heavily. And do you have any of the magnetic doors here?
No.
I don't remember, okay. And some doors in some of the places, hospitals, city hall, that type of deal, the fire alarm goes off, they've got magnets that hold the doors open. As soon as the fire alarm goes off, those doors close. So that is an option if we have doors that are propped open on a regular basis. Well, then we want them tied into the fire alarm. So
Yeah, that's one of the things that I think all residents know is that we do not prop doors open anywhere. Even though we have the kickstands on them, if you prop it open to like get in your laundry room because you've got your cart and you need it propped open, that's fine. But as soon as you're done, it gets shut. Yeah, and any doors that, that's part of the reason why we started closing all of the community doors as well. And it's okay for something like this to prop it open, but as soon as we're done, it's going to get shut again. So it's not just for security purposes, it's also for safety purposes as well.
And like I said, you've got an incredible community that you have in this building. You have a generator, so if the power goes out, you're not going to have everything, but you're going to get powered enough that you've got lights and you've got the creature comforts and that sort of thing. I don't think the stoves and stuff are hooked
No.
to the generator.
The only thing that the generator runs are the hallway lights. It will run the garage gates and it will run the front door. Your key pass for the front door. Other than that, nothing in your apartments is hooked to the generator.
But at least you've got lighting going out egress wise and that sort of thing. Some of these buildings lose that in 20 minutes. So you'll have it. It's on a battery deal, but it's kind of like we're only here long enough to get you out, and then you're on your own. So if you were in your apartment for 30 minutes and you went out, you may not have a way. It'd be dark, but because of the generator, it will run and it'll run all those lights and that sort of thing.
So let's talk a little bit about who would be candidates for shelter in place. If you have any kind of slowness or any kind of deterrent for being able to walk quickly, maybe you're a little unsteady on your feet, maybe you have a little shuffle, your walker, wheelchair, oxygen, all of those reasons would be good to shelter in place. I'll give you a little example. About 6 months ago in Linwood, there was a cooking fire, and the resident opened the door into the hallway to try to air out his apartment, which filled the entire corridor with smoke. The residents that lived there didn't speak any English. They were of Korean descent. And when the firefighters got there, they were all jammed up at the stairwell, and the firefighters actually couldn't get up the stairwell and onto the floor to get to the fire because there were too many people trying to get down the stairs, most of which wouldn't be capable of getting down the stairs even if they got there. And so we went out and talked to those groups about, and getting an interpreter, of course, about what sheltering in place means. So if you have any kind of thought that maybe it would be hard for you to get out, or you could potentially slow down other people, stay in your place, keep your door shut, shove a towel underneath the door if there's any kind of crack that would allow smoke in. And like Carl said, you have about 60 minutes, which we'll be here in 5, 8 at the most. So you have time in your apartment. Sheltering in place is actually a huge benefit to a lot of people. If you're sheltering in place and the fire department comes up and they're able to clear out the smoke with their big fans and clear everything, and then they say, thank you, have a nice day, you never had to leave the comfort of your apartment and everything was taken care of. So that's also another benefit to shelter in place. Another reason why you wouldn't want to enter, or you would want to shelter in place, is if there was smoke present in the hallway. So we have a very safe building here from fire. We have the fire sprinklers, but what really kills people is smoke. The smoke today is actually deadlier than the smoke was a decade ago, just with the building materials that we use. The chemicals that we use to make that building material lighter and less expensive, the way it's manufactured, that smoke is very poisonous, and it doesn't take very long of breathing that in and you'll be incapacitated. So if you have the fire alarms going off and you open your door and you see smoke, don't enter smoke. Close the door, cover the bottom, shelter in place. We would never want to see you enter into a smoke-filled corridor, because then what happens, we start having people collapse, and then other people can't get out, or the firefighters can't get in. So you're better off to stay sheltered in place. It's okay to still call 911 even though you know the fire alarms are going off, because they'll ask you what apartment you're in. That information can be sent back to our command, and that information gets back. So make sure we never enter a smoke-filled. With that being said, if the smoke is in your apartment, get out, close the door behind you, because now you're protecting all of your neighbors from that smoke. You're trapping the smoke in your apartment, and hopefully we can keep it just to your apartment and your neighbors won't be affected. But make sure that you get out, close the door behind you. And just like that, that example I gave you where the person had a cooking fire and they thought they could air out their apartment by opening their door into the internal corridor. They just put their whole entire neighbors at risk from the smoke, but then they also made all the smoke alarms go off and created a larger situation than what it needed to be.
I think the thing that brought all of us out of our apartments the fastest was the noise.
Yes.
That alarm is so loud. That's what everyone complained about, is that the alarm is so loud that people that should not have been coming out of their apartments, people with mobility issues, were coming out of their apartments and asking for help down the stairs because they couldn't stand the noise. My suggestion is that you get some foam earplugs. If you know that you need to shelter in place, if you know you have mobility issues, go to Home Depot or Lowe's or even Rite Aid. We'll have those foam earplugs. Keep them on hand where you know where they're at. You know, buy more than one pair. And when that alarm starts sounding, just stick those things in your ears. It will be easier for you to shelter in place.
Why did you go on so long?
Right.
That just depends how long it takes the crews to get in here and figure out if
That took too long.
How long do you think it took?
A half an hour.
Oh, yeah.
It was very long.
Oh, yes.
It was probably,
It was
I would
half an
say,
hour.
a good 15 minutes before the fire department was here.
Longer.
Longer than that.
Longer than that.
Longer than that.
So
outside.
usually with the pole station or when the smoke alarm goes off, it goes to a company that then calls.
Yeah, we do have a monitoring company.
monitoring company, and that causes a small delay.
A
so there
small
is that.
Delay?
I know.
That
it
was,
just
that was
depends
uncalled
on-
for. It really was.
It depends on what other calls they might have been on
I
at the
take
time
care of a
too.
95-year-old man who can't move around at all. And that was hard on him too, because he didn't know what was happening.
Yeah.
And that shouldn't have happened, number one. I know things do happen. But that shouldn't have happened at all.
And I got a call that night from the crew when they were here on the scene, trying to find out where is the fire alarm panel and stuff, because the crew that came here wasn't from this area. They would actually had to come from, because the two units that take care of Mountlake Terrace were both on calls. So I know it's not an excuse, it does happen, but they called me and I said, get into that room out here.
And excuse me, but while we're on that subject, when we dial 911 for emergency to come get us and take us to the hospital, evidently Mountlake Terrace cannot go to Northwest Hospital.
I think we've heard that before.
Because we called 911 like we're supposed to. We had medics come, and then instead of them taking us to Northwest, they said, well, we'll have to call somebody else to take you to Northwest because we only go to Stevens.
Yeah.
Now, what kind of service is that for people?
You know, give me a pen and I'll find out, and I'll get back to Cindy, because I actually don't know the answer to that, but I will find out.
Isn't it by miles the closest hospital?
Some of it depends on what the injury is, the severity of it, and whether they have to actually take you to the closest hospital by the county ordinances and that sort of thing. But I'm not sure about if it's a Mountlake Terrace unit. I'm not sure whether they can take you to Northwest.
They can't.
That we'll find out.
They
We'll
can't.
find out for sure and make sure.
And I can get an explanation for you
That
too,
would have
because I
cost
don't
him
understand.
$2,000 if he got a different way of transportation. You know, in an ambulance, i.e.
Yeah.
You know, that's a tough one there.
We'll find out for you. And so I'll communicate back with Cindy, and then she can let you know. Okay.
So you said that the alarm does ring at the fire station?
It goes to a monitoring company, and then they alert the
They alert
station.
911.
Yeah, they alert 911. So whoever the closest unit is who gets dispatched. So if the Mountlake Terrace units are out on calls, then it's the next closest unit. Yeah. And sometimes it could be not even from Snohomish County. It could be coming from the south. So it's just a way that we cover each other.
Would they automatically know the building, whoever was coming?
That comes through the monitoring company.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah, and that, unfortunately, that is what happened. That crew was not as familiar with this building as the crews are that are here and come here more often. And that was part of the reason they just thought, well, I'll call Carl. It seems to be on everybody's list.
This one rings off the hook.
So they called me because it was, later at night and that sort of thing. And I just said, you need to get into the key box, and the alarm panel is in that room over there, because what they didn't have was a key to the annunciator that's in the hallway, so they couldn't silence it. And so I think we've also fixed
Well,
that.
I can silence it, but they can't reset it. So and as long as they can't reset it, means it's going to go off again in a certain period of time if it's not reset. So I can silence it, but I cannot silence it until the fire department tells me I can. The worst thing for me, and for any of you, would be for me to silence it before the fire's out. And you guys are all going to come out of your apartments.
That actually just happened at another shag. One of the staff members silenced it because she thought it was a false alarm because they just had one, and there was actually a fire on the 3rd floor. So that actually just did happen.
Yeah. I do not silence the alarm until the fire department gets here. And I learned a lot from this particular instance that we had. I know now where the fire, all they got to do is ask. If they don't know where to shut the alarm off and how to do it, I know how to do it now. So I can tell them.
But you're not here 24 hours a day.
I am too. My mom keeps me here 24/7.
We will get that information for you, and we have all of the dispatch times.
I do go out occasionally, yes, but I'm always reachable by the emergency
phone. From the company, what time the crew was dispatched, where they came from, and what time they arrived. So we can provide all of that.
We're actually working on a big project right now too within our county. That will be like a computer app that we have on our cell phone that property information will come up that will help direct people quicker. Fire hydrant placements, boxes, all of that will be on this app because technology is great, right? But it takes a while to build that, and so we just started that this past year.
I just gave the police department a code to get in the door because when any first responders come, they don't always have access to the building. And so I put a code into our door so that all they got to do is punch the code and they can get in. They don't have to wait till somebody comes. And they are distributing that information through their dispatch offices and that, so that when the fire department or the police department get dispatched, that information will be on their dispatch, what the code is.
So any more questions about sheltering in place before we move to prevention?
You said not to open your door like that guy did, to let the smoke on the hall.
Mm-hmm.
Is it okay to open your window? Or?
So the one thing that fire needs to grow is oxygen.
Right.
So
but it's just smoke and not a fire.
Yeah. Oh, so if you have a fire in your apartment, or if you have
just
smoke,
have smoke and
yes,
no fire,
you can try to air it out yourself,
okay,
as long as there's not an active fire going. If there's a fire, don't open the window.
Right.
Just leave. But if you burnt toast,
yeah,
and
that's
that
what I'm
smoke
thinking.
started the smoke alarm, you could open the window.
I'm good at burning toast.
Air it out. You know.
That's how I know dinner's ready.
Yeah.
Now, one thing that I would like to initiate here in our building is, like Carl talked about, how does the fire department know whether you're sheltering in place or whether you're not sheltering in place, whether you're coming out. So what I intend on doing, I needed to have this meeting so that I can get this information to as many people as possible. We want to start a coding system where if you have a red dot on your anywhere near your door, we're probably going to put it, you know, where your apartment number is on that thing where we have those little tags and those little clicky things. We're probably going to put it there. If you have a red door, you're going to shelter in place. And if you put that, if you allow us to put that red dot in there, then that's what you need to do. You need to make sure that you're not wasting the fire department's time going to all these red dotted doors and nobody's there.
I'm all for that system.
Yeah,
So
that's a great idea.
And I'm stealing it. I wrote it down.
and then the other one would be a blue dot, signaling blue. All of your placards, your disabled placards, and that are blue. So signaling that there's a disabled person in there. Either they cannot walk, they're in a wheelchair, they're bedbound. You know, whatever is going on that is disabling that person. And that's a decision that needs to come from you. You need to inform us as to whether that is a situation that is in your apartment, whether it's you or whether it is your apartment companion. Like my mom, she's bedridden. There is no way that I'm getting her out.
And it can change too if you have a surgery, let's say, and you're going to be incapacitated for a week or two. That would be something to communicate. Short-term, shelter in place, and once you've healed, you could go back to your normal.
The other one would be a temporary yellow sticker. You're on vacation.
Ooh, I like
So
that.
if you go on vacation, you come and get a sticker from me and put it on your door.
That's a great idea.
Jim.
Yeah, you have to remember that we had talked about like floor monitors and everything. All communications will be through a closed door. We will not be opening these doors at all. So you have to understand, you got to yell loud just to let whoever's monitoring it, the fire department, whatever, that you're okay or whatever. But yeah, we won't be opening those doors to check on you.
That's the other thing that I wanted to include in this meeting as well, is that we will be asking for volunteers for floor monitor, and we only need maybe 2 per floor. There's only 20, at the most 29 apartments. Like the 5th floor, 1. So maybe 2 on each floor. We need to get volunteers for doing that, but it will be my choice as to who I choose to do that, because I want the opportunity to pick. But I do need you to volunteer for it. I don't want to force anybody into doing something that they're not comfortable doing.
An important part of the floor monitor isn't just during the initial fire alarm going off. It's after everything is done and cleared, letting those that are sheltered in place know that it's clear and they're okay. Because a lot of times, I know we had one gentleman that went almost the whole night wondering when it was cleared. So important that. And I can help you come up with some plans to do all that. And we could even do training with those volunteers.
That would be great, Shanri. I would love to be doing training with them. That would be, and training with me too, because that's something that, I I tended to come away from that feeling very deficient.
Those are always the best experiences.
They are, they're
we
learning
learn from.
experiences. They're learning experiences, and I put a lot of thought into what I'd like to see done in this community so that everybody feels safe, everybody knows what they want to do, what they need to do, and we have a plan, not just for, like you said, not just for while the fire alarm is going off, but after it's done too, because that's an important part of it. If you're sheltering in place, you need to know what's going on.
Yeah. And it's not just beneficial to you guys, but it's beneficial to our crews as well.
Yeah.
So it helps them
Yeah.
be more efficient.
So,
Cindy, did you want to address those that leave the building or leave their apartments?
Oh,
The
yes.
process there.
Yes. That is one thing that if you choose to leave your apartment, you cannot just come out into the hallways or in the stairwells or in the lobby. You have to get out of the building.
And do you guys have designated
We do
meeting
not have
places?
designated spots right yet, but that's something that's coming. You have to get out of the building and away from the building, because if there is a fire, the chance of windows exploding is very likely. That can happen. So if you're not away from the building, you could get shattered with glass.
So we can
So
walk
it's
around, we make that plan a safe
Yes,
place, because we
yes.
also want to be out of the way of the firefighters that
Yes.
are incoming as well, and the hoses and all that.
Well,
So
we have a
can
few
do that.
places around here, like the little store over here. They have a big enough parking lot that we would be able to, for those of us that want to come out of our apartments, they have a big enough parking lot that we could shelter there. And it's far enough away from the building that you know,
You need to get permission.
you're not crossing a street,
Yeah.
you're not in the way of firefighters. You know, the worst thing that happened in this one is everybody was congregated on the sidewalks in here. And everybody was congregated right in front of the door. And as much as I tried to get you to leave and I would get away from the building, everybody wanted to hover.
So once we come up with a plan, what I actually recommend is that each person walk their personal fire escape plan. Maybe every time you leave your apartment, you go left. Well, maybe if you go left, that's where the fire is. So you need to also know what you would do if you went right. And then how you would get out and where you would go. If you don't walk it, just think about it. Not memory sticks. Because in an emergency situation, sometimes we just kind of go blank. But whatever we've actually done in motion seems to stick a little deeper and we remember it because our bodies just automatically go into motion. So I would never recommend a full drill for the entire building because people get hurt when that happens. But for each individual, think about what your plan is going to be. And if it's shelter in place, that's great. If it's to escape, then think of 2 ways that you could get out of your apartment and where you would go once you got out. Be mindful of where the fire department might be entering and coming, if there's smoke. Just kind of be thinking about all those things.
And I've got a person that's in a wheelchair. So where do I go from there?
So we would recommend shelter in place. And when the fire department gets there, they can help determine. If the fire is not impacting the elevator system and you're not on the floor where the fire is, there's a chance that we can evacuate through the elevator system.
Oh, really?
Especially
Yeah,
if it's on
we
the
can
other
override
side.
the elevator,
Yep.
and so we can bring it up to your floor and make sure that it doesn't open all the way down to whatever floor we
That's
need
new
to.
from
You know,
last
in
time.
using these dots and that the colored dots in order to monitor our apartments, I also have a floor plan of every floor. And I can also take that floor plan, make copies of it, and put those red dots for those apartments that are you know, put the dots on the proper apartments, so that when the fire department comes, I can hand it to them. This is where they need to go, and they know.
And Shari mentioned about practicing it and that sort of thing. Maybe there's a couple, 2 or 3 of you that are planning on going to lunch. Talk about it as you walk out your doors, where you meet and out and where you're going out, and then go have lunch and that type of deal. But the more you actually talk to somebody else about it too, is that muscle memory. You start thinking about those things.
Instead of having an entire complex drill, have a floor drill. No?
Well, so we've had in the past where we've done drills, and we've actually ended up having people, we had one person fall and break their hip during a drill. So it's just better to not do a full drill. We actually would advise against it. So just practice your own personal drill.
And stop, take a look around. My wife won't take me out to a restaurant anymore because I do everything but inspect the grill. So I know where how many sprinklers there are in the restaurant. I know exactly. So I have gone way over it, but there's nothing wrong with being aware of your surroundings. Walk down, stop for a minute, take a look around, and just be aware of where the other stairways are and other things. So.
And not just in your apartments, if you're in the gym, if you're in the parking garage, if you're in here, just everywhere. My husband's in law enforcement, I'm in fire, so I'm thinking when I go out to a restaurant, not just fire, I'm thinking active shooter, I'm thinking, all that, so my poor kids. But just situational awareness, whatever room you're in, mental, there's my 2 exits.
Is the patio right above the entrance? Is that a safe place? Because I live by some people who are mobilely challenged, and I can get them through my apartment out on here.
As long as there's no active fire out there, they could come rescue for you.
My question is, what if the active fire is on that courtyard, one of the apartments on the courtyard?
Well, then I get everybody to hell off that floor.
Yeah.
And the fire alarm's going to put out the active fire that's out there. It shuts the gas off. If there's a fire.
I asked Chandra if she could bring us some pet things. They said they were out of them.
Well, I've already given most of those out.
Okay.
I printed them up, so most of us have.
Perfect. And we would actually recommend that you leave your pets behind, and we'll come back for them, because pets are tripping hazards. We actually did a fire drill. The community really wanted to do it. It was in Mountlake Terrace, and this woman had a little Pomeranian that was in everybody's way, including mine. And I just was more concerned during the drill that we were going to step on him or somebody was going to trip.
My husband took my dog out, and my dog is like,
yeah.
He was horrible.
And they are going to be really very safe. One, it's a sprinkler building. 2, all that heat and smoke is way up here, and they're way down there.
And we do have oxygen masks, and if they do need oxygen when they come out, so leave them behind. We'll come in and take care of them if you have the pet stickers, but even if you don't, we will. They have a tick that senses heat, and so if it's hiding under the bed, they'll find it under the bed. If it's an active fire in that apartment, most likely they can just stay there and they never have to evacuate at all.
The problem with the last time was that the fire was so piercing.
It always is going to be, Tim.
Yeah.
It is. And that's why I suggest you get earplugs.
For the dog?
Oh, for the dogs, yeah. There's not.
You can put them in my dog.
I know, my dog, that's the reason why we took my dog out.
It's really hard on pets. So that's a perfect segue into prevention, because if we can prevent a fire, then we never have to worry about everything else we already talked about, right?
And it is wintertime, and what happens in the wintertime is we do lose power occasionally. And this is not a storage place. As much as I get that through my family's mind, they come in from the grocery store and set stuff right on top of the stove. We don't have burners like this, it's a flat top with glass. So it just kind of looks like a countertop, and it's one of the worst things that can happen, because what was happening just before the power went off? You were making tea, and so put the teapot off and left and went out and had dinner, but in the meantime a sack got sat on there, and so what happened while you're out at dinner? The power came back on. What happened to that sack? It lit on fire, and this is something that happens a fair amount for us and that sort of thing. So just one of those things that's just a great habit not to get into putting anything on a stove, whether it's hot or not.
Even I know the decorative color covers you could put over to. Does anybody know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
They make it look pretty. There was just a fire at the Shag in Linwood because somebody didn't turn off the burner and put their decorative covers back on.
What about aluminum covering your drip tape?
Well, because it does collect oil, and as long as you keep those clean, they're not as much of a problem. It's more the top. Yeah.
I know that we're supposed to keep the 8 inches away from the fire, from the
heater.
Yeah. But then there's one problem with the stoves. Especially when you turn the oven on, the light doesn't stay on at all. When it gets up to a certain degree, like 350.
We've talked about this before.
Yeah, and so if you pull something out and you forget to turn the oven off, that 350 is going to stay in there forever. And there's no little light to tell you that the oven is on.
It only goes on when the oven is heating. We don't
So
have
it clicks
we don't
on,
have
it
an
clicks
on,
off, it
right,
clicks on, it
exactly.
clicks off.
We do not have an on switch for the oven where and something is lit up and says that the oven is on.
Yeah.
It's only for temperature.
Maybe that's when you have that red oven mitt that you don't actually intend on using. You just set it next to your oven to know it's on. You have to kind of come up with
Well, yeah, but
ideas.
a lot of people aren't going to be that way. And
I know.
They need to have that little red dot.
I've had to adopt hanging onto a wooden spoon when somebody knocks on my door and I'm cooking, because invariably
He likes to talk.
I don't. And I'll get to chatting, and pretty soon whatever I'm cooking is either all over the stove or it's burnt. And so I've just gotten to where, oh, I'll be right back. When I realize I'm still holding that wooden spoon. So it's just one of the things that I've had to do. People use the oven mitts or the hot pads and that sort of thing. Just or set timers and back the timer around, whatever works for you. But people like to say, "Oh, I'm getting older, and so I'm getting more forgetful." No, we're just leading busy lives, and remembering that you're cooking something isn't high on my priority when the neighbor stops over. So it's it's just getting the priorities in place.
And it's important to kind of monitor yourself too. If you've had a couple of instances where you've forgotten the oven being on, then maybe time to not use the oven and just concentrate on other cooking methods. So, just kind of being mindful of that.
Also, you can use a timer too,
Yeah, the
so that
timers
there's
are
a
great.
timer going off. You set your timer for an hour.
Yeah.
I mean, that's plenty of time to cook something and then remember to turn your oven off. So when your timer goes off, you're looking at your oven.
Where's the timer in the stove?
I have to buy one.
You have to buy one.
We need to buy one on your own.
There is a cook time in there, which actually will automatically shut your oven off.
No, there's not.
You better take a look.
Yeah, you gotta this is the fancy.
shag.
Never mind.
This is shag. This is not a fancy place.
There's 4 burners.
The one thing that you guys realize already, we do quarterly inspections, and those inspections are for fire safety and personal safety as well. We're looking for egress into your apartment. We want to see pathways in your apartment so that if the fire department gets called, they have a pathway to get to you. We change your batteries and your smoke detectors once a year. We clean your exhaust fans. We're going to look in your oven to make sure. Now that's one place that you actually could cause a fire with your oven. You've got a big grease buildup in there. I have seen some puddling grease in there. That is a fire hazard. And if I say something or give you a 30-day housekeeping, I'm not doing that because I'm evil. I'm doing that because I'm concerned not only for your safety, but the safety of all of our other residents as well.
So 80% of fires actually do start in the kitchen. And so one of the best tools you can have in the kitchen, even if you don't intend to use it, is a lid. That is the same exact size as the pan you're frying on. Because what fires need to be fed is oxygen. And if we can eliminate the oxygen, we can put out the fire. So if a fire erupts on your fry pan and you put the lid on it, step away. Turn off the oven, step away. Don't move your pan off the burner. Don't carry your pan across the kitchen to the sink. Put the lid on it, turn off the burner. We eliminated the oxygen, and as the heat starts to decrease, the fire will go out. Doesn't mean you shouldn't still call 911 and make sure they can come in and make sure it's out for you. Our crews actually like to come and into your building when it's a non-emergency, when there's not fire alarms going off, because they learn your building in a time of non-emergency. Yep. And so it's actually a benefit to them. So this crew that came in and didn't know where the box was,
they know now.
They know now. But had they come for something not as emergent, they would have had a mental kind of mapping of where everything was in this building, and it's a good experience for them to do.
The second thing that a grease fire really loves is water.
Oh yeah.
So if you want to see it really erupt, throw water at it, or carry it over to the sink and put water in it there. You will be wearing part of that, and that's what we don't want. So put the lid on it, turn it off, walk away from it, let it cool down before you try to clean it up. Because even at a certain temperature, when you add water to it, it's going to just erupt.
Wait till it's completely cooled off before you move it.
You cannot believe how grease explodes.
Oh, I've seen it.
It absolutely explodes.
That begs my next question. I have this can of this aerosol stuff supposed to be fire retardant. Is that any good? It's right next to my.
Did you get it at Costco?
Hmm?
Did you get it at Costco? I just saw they had it on special.
Yeah, this stuff
it's if it's what I'm thinking about, it's specifically for grease fires and kitchens for home use. Right. And they're just small little canisters. I haven't done any research on them, so I don't know for sure. But I do know that they're out there.
Well, they're expensive.
Yeah, and they're expensive. But again, if we just keep our stove clean and we stay with our pan while we're frying, and we have a lid next to us, your odds of ever needing to use that are slim to none. So it's just attention to, we don't leave the frying pan. If you do have to answer the door, you can just move it to the other burner, shut it off, go answer the door, and come back and resume cooking.
You talked about the vents in the bathroom that you clean out, but there are vents, filters and stuff above, like in the hood of the stove.
Right.
Are they wired?
Those are. Yes, you should be cleaning those occasionally, and all you got to do. No, do not put them in the dishwasher. They are not dishwasher. They are aluminum. They will oxidize in the dishwasher.
Okay.
Little Dawn just detergent.
So yeah, if they get really bad, fill your sink up with really hot water, even as hot as you can get it. Put a little bit of Dawn in there. Let it soak for a little while. It will take care of the grease. And then simply spray it off with water.
Yeah, you could get a lot of grease buildup up here, and the fire actually doesn't start here. It's the heat that rises and the fire starts up here. So keeping that clean is really important.
It is really important to keep it clean. And it depends on what you cook, how much you cook, how often you cook, as to how often you need to clean.
It makes the fan more efficient.
It makes the fan more efficient. Right. Right.
Cindy brought us some aluminum business that she brought to my attention. I mean, people put aluminum foil at the bottom of the ovens, and I mean, she informed me that actually oxidizes the aluminum, so she recommends these silicone pads and so forth. What do you think about silicone? Is it really oven resistant to inflammation?
I would actually look at the manufacturer's instructions for the oven, because they might actually say in there that they don't want you to put anything in there. Right. So whatever, whether it's your smoke alarm, your oven,
our ovens are all, none of our ovens are self-cleaning. They are all just regular.
Just check the manufacturer's instructions. They'll have, if you can put products in there and cleaning instructions, and I would follow those.
What's your opinion of silicone things as substitute for aluminum wrapping around, like casserole dishes and so forth? I bought them at Bed Bath & Beyond, the silicone.
I've never used them, and so I don't know much about them.
I used to have a silicone bun pan that I used all the time. And yeah, bake cake in it, and it's perfect. I have silicone in my oven. I've had it in my oven.
I've used it
2 years.
From their experience.
Same piece of silicone for 2 years.
What are you talking about? Silicone?
I would just check those.
Cover one? Yeah, it's kind of a plastic.
Just so the other thing we talked about frying, but same thing applies if you have a fire in your oven or you have a fire in your microwave. Turn it off, leave the door closed. The fire will put itself out. Call 911 if you want, you want them to come check it out. But the last thing we'd want to do is open it up and take a look. And then the oxygen washes in, and now we've created a bigger fire. Simply eliminating the heat. As the heat decreases, the fire will go out. But again, 911, your peace of mind, give us a call. We're not going to be mad about it. We actually like to come out. They're very nice when they do. So give us a call. We'll come out and check it out. But just don't open the door and give it that extra swoosh of oxygen. Same thing with don't lift the pan lid up to see if the fire went out. You just fed it again, a little bit of oxygen. And then other things, candles, space heaters, having furniture too close to your wall heaters. Those are all potential fire hazards. Space heaters should have electric blankets. Space heaters should have at least 3 feet of clearance all the way around, so if it gets knocked over, it's not going to be touching anything. A lot of big living communities like this actually don't allow space heaters because of the danger. And then power cords, make sure you get ones that are grounded, don't overfill them. Read the instructions on what you're plugging in. A lot of microwaves don't allow you to plug into a power strip. And a lot of people plug microwaves into power strips. Same thing with space heaters. Space heaters are only allowed to be plugged directly into the wall. You're not allowed to plug a space heater into a power strip. It's a fire hazard. So those are just some things to think about in your own home and other ways to keep yourself safe.
Jim, did you have a question?
Well, just a comment. One of the things that'll go along with, you know, a monitor on the floor and everything is for wellness checks. We had a situation, I don't know, it must have been 3 or 4 months ago, where everything this woman did was against her norm. And so we had the police here and everything. Come to find out, she went out with her friend of hers to a play down at the 5th Avenue. She left her door unlocked. She left her phone in her apartment. Everything was
her car was here with the car door open.
Yeah.
Oh,
and so,
my God.
you know,
everything was saying there's something wrong with this woman.
Yeah. And, you know, it worked out great. It goes along with, you know, you're going to help the floor monitors or anything.
The police department loves to come out here when they have an outcome like that.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
But it's,
they
you
don't
know,
feel
it's
bad about
not
coming
just
out at all.
fires, it's not just smoke. We're in a community that anything could happen at any time.
One of the fires that we had, I think at Edmonds, elderly gentleman was frying hot dogs, and he actually fell. And so he couldn't get up, and the hot dogs continued to fry, and that caused a pretty big fire. And one of the neighbors actually heard him yelling for help. So those are scenarios that can happen too. So just knowing your neighbors and if they're needing a little extra assistance and keeping your ear out for that as well.
Do you think part of the training, maybe for the floor monitors at least, teaching how to use the extinguishers that are on the floor?
So, but that would be part of the training. When it comes to fire extinguishers, they're not for everybody. They're very hard to use. They're very hard to break the little tie that's on there. They're heavy. They could cause injury. And actually what happens a lot of times with people using fire extinguishers, or they're so busy trying to fight the fire that they get themselves into a dangerous situation, backed into a corner. They don't understand the size of a fire extinguisher can actually fight. In truth, your fire extinguisher's job is to help you get out. And that's why fire extinguishers are posted at exits. So they are a way for you to exit the building. If you were to have a fire in your apartment and run out to the hall to get the fire extinguisher to come back and put out the fire, your fire just doubled or tripled in size in that very short minute that you were gone. So this is why I have my cone here. This is the size fire that you could likely fight with a fire extinguisher, as long as it was contained in a garbage can or some other kind of contained area. Fire grows so fast that a fire extinguisher most of the time is going to be ineffective, especially if we don't have experience using them and we have to kind of figure it out. And people don't know how to use them. They want to spray over the fire and knock it down, when we actually want to spray at the base of the fire, because that's where the heat and the fuel and everything is.
By law, you have to have those in every damn footage of an apartment, and nobody knows how to use them.
Exactly. So that would be,
including me.
Yeah. And I tell people, if you don't know how to use it, your best bet is just to get out, because you just want to make sure you're safe. So pull your little pull stations as you leave, if nobody's done that yet. So those are good.
Recently, I saw at Costco a bottle like this, and you can spray right at the fire.
Right. I did see those too. I didn't do any research on those. I just saw those last time I was there, and they're supposed to be specific for kitchen fires, is what I read on there.
So I have one which is next to my stove.
I'll look it up and see what they're all about, and then I'll let Cindy know, and she can kind of communicate back.
We'll put it in the next newsletter, not the February one, but the March one.
And so whoever joins the floor monitor volunteer group, we'll go over some fire extinguisher training. Just kind of, we won't put out a real fire or anything, but we'll go over the ins and outs, and I have some that we can actually hold and feel. So we'll
Cindy,
go over
when
that.
do you think you'll start the setup on that one?
The volunteer sign-up things will probably go out with the newsletter. I'll have Frank come up with a form, and they'll go out with the newsletter along with the form. What are you going to do in case of a fire? Are you going to shelter in place? Are you going to leave? Or are you disabled?
No, that's my answer, thank you.
We'll try and get it out. February newsletter should be going out probably either Friday or Monday next week.
So one of the handouts I didn't hand out, but I would highly encourage you to stop and get one on your way out, is about fall prevention. And falls aren't just that hard fall on the ground. It's a slip, a trip, or a fall. Most of our calls are for falls. Runs. Calls are for falls. Whether that means a person just needs to be scooped up and put back on their feet or in their chair, or they actually need to be transported to the hospital. But just like fires are preventable, falls are preventable. I know that some of us love our area rugs. And area rugs are the biggest risk for falls because they're very easy to trip over. Trip over if you're trying to exit for a fire, or if you're just walking through your living room to go get yourself a cup of coffee. So we want to make sure that as much as we love those area rugs, not having them is a big plus. Wearing sturdy shoes, even during the day when you're just kind of hanging out in your apartment, is really beneficial. Slip-on shoes cause slips, trips, and falls. Slip-on slippers.
Especially ones without heels.
Yes. So tie-up shoes, Velcro shoes, something sturdy is really important. When you go shopping for shoes, look at the tread on the bottom. Because when shoes are for running, they're built for running, and they have extra sticky and thick tread. And if you're not wearing those shoes for running and you're just wearing them every day, they stick to the carpet and can cause you to slip or trip. So you actually want to look for treading on your shoes that's almost very flat, doesn't have a lot of like grip looking to it. Because we want sturdy shoes, but we don't want to make those shoes a tripping hazard.
And a running shoe can actually make your feet hurt because they actually move you forward slightly. They're meant for running, they're meant for movement or fast walking or running, and so the heels are a little bit thicker in such a way, and the fronts are cushioned that make you actually ride on the balls of your feet, which is your feet don't like that.
The older we seem to get, lace shoes are a little harder.
Yeah. Yeah, Velcro.
Yeah,
that's a great invention. Or, if you get slip-on shoes, just make sure that on the top of the foot it comes up high, so that it's actually a slip-on tight fit. A lot of the women's shoes might be slip-on, but the toe part is very small, barely covers your toes, and those can be tripping hazards. So just make sure if they're slip-on, they're actually, your feet are going all the way into it, and it's coming up tall. So. And
just be aware that along with the Falls program, that South County Fire, or now whatever we're called this week, we seem to change our names a lot, but South County Fire does also have a community paramedic program. And so the crews, if they come for you, let's say you had a fall or that type of deal, and they come and they help you back up and they're not going to transport, they may suggest having this community paramedic come in and do some evaluation. I just want to put everybody's mind at ease. The community paramedic is not here to get you out of your home by any means whatsoever. As a matter, and I can prove it to you, because as a matter of fact, it's actually trying to keep you in your home. The funding for this program comes from the hospital district, and some of it comes from the federal government. And what happens if you're out of your home here? You're in a facility where it's going to cost the government a whole lot more money. They don't want to do that. They want to keep you in your home. So there, I just proved why. That's what the program is so successful about, is what they'll do is look at things that you can have in your apartment that will make things easier for you to stay in your apartment. So if they make that suggestion, it's up to you whether you take it or not, but it's not something that they're trying to do to get you out of your apartment by any means whatsoever. They're trying to help you stay.
Do they offer a community more of a community, like this kind of a setting, class for fall prevention?
It's really individualized because they look at everything. They ask you, when was the last time you had your vision checked? Because vision is a huge contributor to falls.
Right.
They will look at the prescriptions that you're taking, especially if you're getting them from different pharmacies or doctors, to see if there's any interactions, and that interaction is causing your dizziness or your falling.
And everything that they do is totally confidential, just as if the crews were here taking you. They're not going to talk to somebody else about your medical problems or anything like that, but they have the ability to actually call your physician. That physician will actually talk to him or her. They have the ability to talk to the pharmacies and stuff, and those pharmacists will talk to them. They have the clout now that they're there trying to help, and so you may have exactly what Sean Reese said, 2 different doctors prescribing 2 different meds to 2 different pharmacies, and they're not talking to each other. His job is to look at those, or her job is to look at those and go, well, you shouldn't probably be using these 3 drugs together. And they'll figure that out. There's no obligation. Again, it's paid for by the hospital district, which is Verdant, who owns the property and the building that Swedish is in. This is where part of the tax money that you pay goes to Verdant. They turn around and put it back into this program, and it's a good program.
And there's no charge to you for
no
the
charge
program.
whatsoever.
Who can initiate that? Does the resident have to initiate that? Can it be
The
initiated by our resident service coordinator?
I think it's patient.
Yeah, as long as the person agrees. They have to agree to it. So we look at it as we are a 911 agency. By you agreeing to have the community paramedic come in is like you picking up the phone and calling 911. We have to be invited to come to your home. As long as that's the case, we're not here to try to strong arm anybody or anything like that. That's not the program's intent. The program's intent is to help. You got a question?
The fall situation, I mean, we are living in a community with elder people, and the apartments are close to each other, but if someone falls, what do you think about those emergency signaling devices that elder people carry?
Yep, those are great. Do I have any veterans or veteran spouses in here?
No veteran.
So if you're a veteran or a spouse of a veteran, there are a lot of benefits out there that maybe you might not be taking advantage of that you don't know of. But a lot of times those services can help you get those for lower cost or even no cost. But we also have programs where we can help facilitate that based on your income too.
Does your spouse have to be alive?
Nope.
There's one thing I have to emphasize. If you have that service, you absolutely must wear it all the time. And I'll tell you why. My Uncle Thomas, living by himself back in Baltimore, fell down and stayed down for 2 days. 2 days with a broken hip before a neighbor noticed the lights were on, came in, he had the hip surgery and died in rehab in his 80s. It was absolutely prevented. He owned the system but wasn't wearing the time he fell.
That's pretty common. You guys are lucky in the community.
And wading through a lot of that is part of what the community paramedic's job can do. Wading through some of the Veterans Affairs deals in order to get that, wading through some of the insurance programs. Maybe on a temporary basis you need somebody that comes in once a day for 4 hours or something like that. They can work on those programs to get that done.
Meal programs, if you need help bathing, just all of those things. They're able
Sometimes
to
it's
help
just a
with.
temporary thing.
I just want to say, this is the first thing I do in the morning.
Yeah.
It not only makes me feel secure, it makes my children feel secure. If I don't answer
Well, do you
the
keep them on
phone,
at night?
It's a GPS sign thing, they know where she's at.
It's a peace of mind.
Even when you bathe.
but they can. This is a GPS, so it goes with me no matter where, because I still drive. And if I don't answer the phone, the children are connected to an app that'll give them where I'm at.
I have to get that for my teenagers.
What does it? Must be with you all the time, 24 hours a day, even when you sleep, man, even when you're bathing.
You can even wear it in the shower.
Yes.
That's great.
If you fall in the shower.
But you
And
must
I've
do
had
it,
this
yeah.
now for 3 years.
That's great.
But you must actually wear it. You do
I've
it,
never
otherwise
seen
it's not
her
working.
without her.
Huh?
Right.
I've never
You've
seen
never
you
seen
without
me
it.
without
Nope,
it.
I've never seen you without it.
I have a cell phone.
Yeah. Other questions?
Well, this is really way out. We've been talking about what I consider the best situation if it happened in this building. But what if there were, say, a massive explosion? They've been happening around this area and many other areas where everything's all of a sudden really on fire. And there's people up on those top floors. Is there room for you to get your ladders in here to bring people out of the windows?
All of these buildings are built in such a way that we have access to at least two sides of the building, and so we will physically move you to one side or the other to get you down. If we need to put you on something to take you down our ladder, we will. And so the guys are trained for this. Anything up to 5 stories, we can do that. And yours is actually, it's 5 stories, but it's actually not. We go, the 5 stories we measure is at the very top of the building. And that sort of thing. So,
and even if it was above the 5 stories, if we could get the stories above that down to the 5th story to get them evacuated, we would do that as well. So they train for this all the time.
Because I know people have had concerns. I mean, I know people have concerns about remaining in your place.
Yeah, it goes against your kind of natural fight or flight to stay in place.
I mean, we're the generation that had fire drills, and you got out of the building. Period. There was no such thing as shelter in place.
Was stomach. And that the sun wouldn't bother us.
Well,
hence the scar on my face.
Even in schools, they're rethinking fire drills. Because in a school situation, if you have a fire drill, we have sheep. Our kids are sheep. They go the same direction, and they go out to the same place out in the play yard, and they check in. And what they're finding is that we're creating these sheep that are going to put themselves in a dangerous situation. Because when we think about those active shooter situations in schools, all somebody has to do is pull the fire alarm, all the kids are evacuating to one central place, and they're sitting ducks. So they're trying to rethink even school fire drills on a national level and how that might look, because we're not going to be calling them fire drills. We're going to be calling them safety evacuation drills, and there will be different scenarios for each one. We need to teach people to be critical thinkers and to be looking at a scenario. What if you guys had an earthquake? You know, there's going to be so many different scenarios that we have to think through, that we have to be prepared for all of them. But if we can think critically about it instead of just being sheep and just always going left, right, or always going right, then we're going to be better off. So that's what we're here for you guys today, is to challenge your thinking about what you would do if there was a fire, and that sheltering in place, even though it seems so out of what you would normally do. Think about it more critically and what that really could look like, and how that benefits you. It benefits the fire department that's trying maybe to get up that stairwell to get to that fire, and just think about that.
What window would you take them out of up at the upper floors, though?
That's a really good question. That would just be up to the command when they came on scene.
Sure.
Depends where the fire is.
We would pick one that's the most remote from the fire itself, and we'll take that window out. Believe me, those guys live for that.
Oh yeah.
And they train for it. Like I said,
bedroom.
There's a reason why cops and firefighters, I think they always said their DNA is a little bit different, and we always run towards danger. I don't know. I don't know what it is, but
And also,
I have often headed towards it, dragging my wife with me.
And also, there's a lot of people in the building that have dryers, and there's a lot of lint that gets caught up. And then there's the lint screen that you take out and you can empty, but then beyond that, there's a bunch of lint that's all the way down.
That is something that I am going to add to my quarterly inspections. I am going to take that lint filter out, and I'm going to vacuum in there.
Oh, good.
I understand that not everybody can get to it. There's been a few of you that have asked me to do that, and when I've taken those filters out, I've gone, oh my God.
I've got mine out.
That's great.
Yeah. So that's another thing that we're adding to when we bring the vacuum cleaner in to vacuum your exhaust. We're also, if you have a washer and dryer, we're also looking at that. The washers and dryers in our communal ones, Patty cleans those vent filters every day.
Thank you, Patty.
Every day.
Welcome. I came to please.
All right.
So those are a few things that we're adding to our list.
I know we're getting close to the end of time. So, not the end of time, the end of our time, sorry. If you have any questions that we didn't get answered, you go back to your apartment, you think of a question, let Cindy know. She and I can email back and forth, and I can address it. Maybe we could even do a little article in your newsletter.
Yep.
And we can give some safety tips, talk about our community paramedic program, especially for people that couldn't be here. Tell all your friends that didn't come how amazing this was. And they should
It's possible that Frank can email Chandri every month and say, hey, what's your tidbit safety tip for this month?
Yeah, I love that.
And where you got it. And we have recorded it too, so that people that couldn't be here, tell everybody that they can request it to be played down here. I can play it on YouTube for them whenever.
Or the theater room.
Yeah. Yeah, that's great.
Right down to call Kevin's number.
Yeah. All right, you guys, thanks for having us. Thank
Awesome.
And I have some larger ones if there's anybody. Oh, thank you so much. Sorry.